Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Hidden Pictures, written by Jason Rekulak. It's a horror. It's quite a gripping book, very engaging, but it relies heavily on images in the book. And that's a unique thing about this book. There are many drawings that are from the character Teddy, who's a child. Those drawings get more advanced as the story goes on and also tell more about the paranormal/horror aspect of this story. But without the pictures, I don't know if this book would be as gripping, as engaging, because the story itself, the writing, the scenes in the book aren't that gripping and engaging. There's a few of them that are, and there's good tension in the book as well, good psychological tension. But for the paranormal aspect, it's the pictures that drag the reader into that paranormal aspect. So when you read this, if you try to imagine what it'll be like without the pictures, I wonder if you think the same. Without the pictures in this story, would you think the story would be as good? I'm not too sure. I'm kind of on the fence about that. But I'm leaning more to the side of no, the story would not be as good without the pictures. Our main character, Mallory, is still recovering from addiction. She's been clean for 18 months, and she's got a great opportunity to get a job as a nanny/babysitter for a young boy called Teddy. And Teddy's parents, they both work, and they need somebody to look after him during the summer before school starts. It just seems like such a breezy job for Mallory. You know, Teddy is very easy to look after, he's very bright and inquisitive. He just seems like a little adult in some ways. The parents seem easygoing and friendly. They do have some very strict rules about certain things, but other than that, it's pretty easygoing. And she gets to live in the house, at a little guest house in the backyard. But there's a strange thing about Mallory, I think, at the start. For somebody who's still recovering from addiction, I don't think the author makes enough of that. Throughout the book, we don't see really Mallory struggling with thoughts about addiction, with thoughts about wanting to go back onto whatever she was addicted to. And in certain parts where the book is very tense, and as the story goes on, where Mallory's not believed about certain things, where her sanity is questioned, where she questions her own sanity, would that sort of character, with that behaviour, with that addictive behaviour, be really tempted to go back to old ways? That's not described in this book at all. It's not explored at all. I think that's a bit of a miss. Early on in the book, and it gets worse and worse as the story goes on, Teddy starts to be a bit strange with his drawings. He draws a lot. You know, the pictures are usually innocent, but then a strange figure appears in the pictures, and he calls that strange figure Anya. And also Anya is his make-believe friend, his imaginary friend. And Anya only turns up in his room, it seems. But she appears in more and more pictures, and as pictures get more disturbing as the story gets on, they even get violent, and they even suggest something violent happened to this character Anya. Mallory starts to worry about it. You know, is Anya a real person? Is she a spirit communicating through Teddy? But nobody will believe her. Then Mallory learns about the history of the house and the guest house where she's staying. It was a tool shed before the new family moved in. But prior to that, it was a guest house. And there was a murder in that guest house. And the person who was murdered is named Annie. Mallory thinks that Anya is Annie as just Teddy's way of thinking of Annie, or that the spirit is saying her name's Anya, just to confuse Teddy maybe, just to trick him. And she's not sure what's happening. Is this spirit working through Teddy to talk about what happened to her? You know, where her body could be found, or the real truth about her. What's going on with this character Anya and Teddy's drawings? Mallory starts to spiral out of control as the book goes on as well, because nobody believes her. But she talks to the next door neighbour, Mitzi, a couple of times and finds out that Mitzi is a so-called psychic. But Mitzi seems to have her own problems as well. Mitzi seems like she's dependent on certain things as well, that she may have her own addictions that she's coping with. But she agrees to help Mallory. And there are a few scenes where they try to get in touch with the spirit. And that's also a bit strange as well, because the author plays a bit loose with the rules that most people think about when they think of things like that. I won't go into detail what they are in the book, but it just seems like the author was taking a lot of poetic license in some of those scenes. Dragging Mitzi into the mix causes Teddy's parents to disbelieve Mallory more, so it doesn't help her. In fact, they think that Mallory is spiraling. They think she's not remembering things properly. They think she may be back on the substances that she was addicted to. They think that she's a danger to Teddy as well. And they don't believe her. They think she's insane or going insane. And that causes Mallory to doubt her own sanity as well, her own memories. And that's where the whole psychological tension comes into this story. I think that was built up quite well. The author did a good job with the psychological tension. Not so much the spirit spooky element in the story. The conclusion of this book is way out there, and it takes you along some really sharp twists and turns, things you probably didn't see coming. Do they make sense in the story when we see what's happening at the end? Yes and no. In some ways you wonder, how could certain things be hidden? But in some ways you think, well, it's explained okay. It's given enough of an explanation, so it could have been like that in the story. But it takes a bit of convincing, I think, on behalf of the reader. So I think a lot of readers will just turn around and say, look, that's just a ridiculous ending. I don't agree with it. It doesn't make sense. And some readers will say, okay, it's clever. I do get it. I do get the explanation about it, and I do like it. I don't mind it. I think it's a fair enough ending to the book. Mallory is mostly written well in the book. We feel her anxiety, her fear, her confusion. But when things are really spiraling out of control, I did believe it. I did believe that she was spiraling. I believed that she was stuck in these situations where nobody would believe her, her frustration, just her anger sometimes, and her fear about what's really going on. I was really hooked and engaged with that. But then I wondered, should a character like that, who's recovering from addiction, when she's not believed by anybody, people are calling her insane, she's got nowhere to turn to, why isn't the author exploring Mallory thinking about going back on old ways? You'd think that a character like that, who's recovering still, with all these pressures, would think about that just at some stage through the book. And I think that that's a miss with the character. Teddy, the young child, I think he's the best written character in this story. Everything about him just screams young child. He's very believable, and I just enjoyed his character in the story very much. He just had this energy and this fun in the book, and the author used him quite well in the spooky moments, and I think he's the best character in those spooky moments, the most well used. And I could just imagine some of those scenes on a screen, in a TV series or a movie. You can imagine this character going through those things that are described in the book. If I think about other books where you have children in a similar situation, he's not as well used as, say, the child in The Exorcist. I believed that more. But Teddy, the character in this book, is used well enough, and I think he is the best character in this book. Carolyn Maxwell, who's Teddy's mother, she's used very well and written very well in the book. You can really picture her as being an overbearing parent in some ways. She seems very highly strung as well. Her emotions are on a knife edge, and in the book, you don't know which way she's going to go. And there are certain times in the book where her anger gets the better of her, and then later on she quickly changes and she's all friendly and nice again. So you see her changes, her quick switches in personality or emotion, her ups and downs. And that creates a bit of an unstable character in the book. And you get that impression more and more as the story goes on. So very well written and very well developed as the story goes on. Probably a better character in that aspect than Mallory, because Carolyn just seems more real and more consistent with how she's written. Mallory has those little bit of misses about little gaps in how I think somebody like that would behave. So I think Carolyn just makes for a more engaging, a more gripping, and a more real character in this story. Hidden Pictures is a very interesting story. I don't think it would work as well without the pictures, without all the drawings in the story. I think they play a big part. And that's curious because the book then is also using visual aspects, not just written word, it's using visual aspects to draw the reader in. And I wonder if that's going to be the start of some new trend. Are we going to see more books using more visual aspects to draw the reader in as well, and not relying too heavily on the author's ability to create these tense and gripping scenes with words? I got that impression in this book. I do rate it a 4 out of 5. And that's because of the whole package, the writing and the pictures. If I took the pictures away, I'm not sure how I'd rate this book, but I did enjoy the story overall. I thought there is great build-up in this story, great use of tension and suspense. Could have used more spooky elements. Those spooky elements are there, but they could have been written, a bit stronger, dragged us in more, and maybe even a bit more violently in the book as well. On my channel, I do review quite a few horror books. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a horror playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.